couple of minutes, and then we will start. Before we actually go ahead, can all of you confirm that you are able to see my screen? Okay, great.
Yes.
All of
I
you,
think
and all of you are able to hear me as well, right?
yes.
Okay,
Yes,
cool.
maybe.
Okay, great. Um, I don't want to take 2 minutes before we start. So just give me a couple of minutes. We're expecting a couple of people to join as well. I know this is already time, but just give me 2 more minutes and then we will start. All right. I'll be on mute, but we will start exactly in 2 to 3 minutes time from now. Is that okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Right. I think we'll continue. Right. All of you can hear me, I hope. Now, before we start, let me give you a few instructions. Now, this GoToMeeting application, right now, all of you have joined in as attendees. And I think for most of you, it does not let you record this session. But do not worry about recording the session. Once this demo session is complete, they will be sending you the recorded sessions to the emails with which you have registered. Okay. So don't bother about trying to take pictures or trying to record the session. It'll be sent to you. The second thing is, during this session, if you have any questions, feel free to ask questions. On the GoToMeeting panel, there is an option called Raise Hand. Right? So that option is basically for intimating me that you have a question, and you could raise hand. I could go ahead and unmute you, and you can ask a question. In case you have the option to unmute yourself, then feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question if you have. Okay. So either raise your hand or go ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question. So this will probably be around 40 minutes to 45 minutes, this session, which is a demonstration session. The basic idea of this session is to just give you a gist of what we're going to cover during this training program. And yeah, so during this time, if you have any questions, you just make sure you ask. Now, I will be the one who will be doing the training and demonstration as well. I'm going to take. Just to introduce myself, uh, this is my 18th year on the SAP platform. I've worked extensively with different versions of BW from 3.0, 3.2, 3.5, 7.0, 7.1 to 5, 7.5, BW on Hana, and then BW4HANA. So we are still in the process of doing one more implementation on BW4HANA for a manufacturing client. So during this time, during our training, sometimes I might be showing slides from there as well. So yeah, that's what I do. So if you have any questions around business objects relating to BW4HANA, or if you have questions relating to data services or SLT, things like that around the BW4HANA platform, you can always ask me, because I've done a lot of work around that. So anything relating to BW, it could be a source system from where you bring in data through, let's say, data services or SLT, or any of this. So just you can always ask. I'd be able to show you and also explain things around that. Now, coming to the prerequisite of what we need for BW4HANA. So just to give you a ballpoint prerequisite, you will definitely need a prior understanding of BW. You should have worked in BW projects before, or at least have knowledge about what BW is. When I say that, what it means is you need to have understanding about info objects. You need to have an understanding about the concept of how data moves in BW into data or DSOs, and also into queues, and basically how we're going to consume that. So that kind of idea you need to have, right? And the other major thing that you will need is about the HANA piece. I believe a lot of you have an understanding about HANA. So basically, you need to understand how data comes into HANA, and then how are you able to model data in HANA as well. So if you do not have that understanding, I'm going to take that as well as a part of our training. So I will be talking about native HANA modeling and how you basically report on top of HANA at real time. So I will be covering that, but this is also a prerequisite, right? So if you do not have BW knowledge prior to this session, then it'll be difficult for us to cope during the training. Okay, because I would be referring to previous versions of BW, and this is built on top of an existing knowledge of BW. So if you do not have BW knowledge, then it'll be difficult. For people who do not have it, you can, if you're already registered with Techie Training, then they also can provide videos that basically talk about different versions of BW and the fundamentals of BW. So they have that videos. In case you need it, please send an email to them and they'll help you with it. Okay. All right. So let me just run between what we are going to cover during this training program. Okay. Now, so we would talk about basically the move from SAP BW to HANA. On a high level, we're going to talk about what are the major differences that have come in from regular BW to BW4 HANA. One of the biggest things that you will look at is the interface that you use to work. Now, a lot of you must have worked on SAP BW and BW on HANA as well. So the major difference you will find is the interface. You will move away from SAP's GUI to working on the Eclipse part of it, right? So that'll become one of the biggest changes that you will find. But also, apart from that, you will see that BW has been streamlined very much. Now, what you used to do on obsolete objects such as the DSOs and the InfoCubes and multi-providers and all of that is going away, right? So one of the biggest changes will be they will not be info providers that you were using before that have come into BW4 HANA. When I say that, it means that all your work that you've done on InfoCubes, DSOs, you will not be able to bring that into BW4 HANA unless you have some way of doing an upgrade or copying over your data from an existing one. So that is something we will address as we do our training. So what happens to our old models? So somebody is trying to upgrade from 7.3 or 7.5 to BW4 HANA. What do they have to do? But a lot of times we've seen that clients are going for a completely new system for BW4 HANA. But we will see in which scenarios you would want to upgrade and which scenarios you want to use a completely new system. So you will not have any of the DSOs, you will not have any of the cubes, you will not have anything relating to multi-providers or info sets, you will not have info packages. So there are quite some changes that have come in BW4 HANA, right? And you have a few, probably a handful of objects that we're going to use in BW4 HANA. They are going to suffice for whatever is not there in our older models. In other ways, they're going to streamline the entire BW system, and so we'll try and explain that. So there are other differences as well in terms of push-down queries and procedures being used and all of that. And so we will talk about that, and I also will show the system during this session. This will probably be our first session. So that'll be when I'll be showing you BW and BW4 HANA. The second thing that we will need to cover and address is the SAP HANA piece. Now SAP HANA becomes very important. That's what is SAP banking on pretty much, because we are moving in from a time when we were bringing in data to a time when we want to utilize real-time data. And so a lot of clients are pushing for using real-time data. And so HANA becomes a vital piece for all of them. And there are different ways of how that is achieved. And so we're going to address that as well. We're going to talk about how basic modeling or skeletal modeling in HANA happens, and how that has improved as well from versions 1 to version 2, and what are there and what have gone. If you look at the fundamentals of it, you used to have three basic views: attribute, analytic, and calculation views. So couple of views have already gone off, which is attribute and analytic views. SAP has recommended to stop utilizing them. Clients have also stopped using attribute and analytic views, and they have started using only calculation views. Calculation views suffice for both attribute and analytic, and so we will not be going back to utilizing attribute and analytic views. So those kind of changes have happened. And again, in calculation views, there are different models that we can build, and we will address them as well, and how basically modeling happens, what are joins, what is cardinality, and how do we expose these models to reporting tools. So these kind of things we're going to talk on SAP HANA. Then our next step will be to get to the actual piece, which is SAP BW4HANA. Now, for somebody who has already a knowledge of BW and who has quite some information about HANA, BW4 HANA is not a very difficult piece. It becomes pretty simple to handle because there is not a lot of content in terms of different types of objects and when to use, where to use. That is going to become pretty less. So there are only three major models that we're going to use, and so advanced DSO is one of them, and that will basically be for every object that you will need. Pretty much, you will not have PSA, so in case you need PSA, you'll use advanced DSO. In case you want to use write optimize, then you go for advanced DSO. In case you want to use a standard DSO, in case you want to use a queue. So pretty much all of these objects that went off, there is one solution, which is the advanced DSO. When to use it, where to use it, we will talk about different layers of the BW system, and then we'll see how the advanced DSO can be utilized. Now, moving on from there, we also have the composite providers and the open ODS view for any kind of virtual data that you'd want to access and build instantly, then open ODS, and then you have the composite provider, which is much advanced than the multi-provider and InfoSec, where you have the ability to again do different kinds of joins, and also you have the ability to bring in not just BW objects but also HANA objects into picture. Right. So all of this is possible, but practically talking, what you will use majorly is the advanced DSO. And so we will look at majorly all the scenarios possible with the advanced DSO. Now, once we try to understand that, then again, there is the BW HANA modeling tools in Eclipse. SAP has underlined that there will be a change at some point to move away from SAP's regular GUI into the Eclipse piece. And so you have this part of getting customers and service providers accustomed to this by releasing 7.3, 7.4, and 7.5, and strategically moving away from the GUI into the Eclipse. So 7.3, 7.4, and 7.5, you will see that some of the objects could be created on the SAP GUI, and some of them had to be only created in the Eclipse piece. You could create them in the Eclipse and utilize them in the regular GUI. But here, This is the point where the SAP GUI is pretty much not used anymore. We will completely shift into the Eclipse modeling. And so we will try and understand where our objects are, how is the arrangement happening, and then what objects have uh, gone off and how do we access. Basically, we will look at is there a possibility for process chains and is there a possibility for transport mechanism directly here. So we'll look at those options as well. Migration to SAP BW4HANA. So like I mentioned before, who are the clients who would want to upgrade from an existing BW system to BW4HANA? And who are the clients who want to completely ditch away with older versions of BW and then have a complete greenfield BW4 HANA system? So we're going to talk about what strategies are there in case there is an upgrade. How do we go ahead and copy our data, because objects are not the same, and how do we go ahead and uh, basically improvise in importing all that data and then converting existing objects into BW4 HANA models, and how does that happen? What is the process of trying to upgrade? Do you have to always come to 7.5 on HANA and then from there move to BW4 HANA, or how is that going to be? So we'll talk about those options as well. In the SAP HANA modeling, which we are going to cover as the first part of our training, we're going to talk about native modeling. This involves how we're going to utilize HANA, or basically tables that are on HANA, and how do we go ahead and do the modeling piece. In case I'd want to do any COPA reporting, or let's say sales reporting or orders, how do we bring about these tables? How do we link these tables? Where do we look for tables in SAP, and how do you know what kind of join you need to go ahead and define? So these kind of things we will go ahead and look through. You have HANA Live and all that, but very few people use that anymore. We will have a look at the S4 embedded analytics as well. Basically has another transaction where you can go into S4 to look at the BW piece. So we'll try to go in there and see what options we have in there as well. So from a BW4 HANA perspective, some of the things that we're going to cover uh, in depth is basically info objects. Uh, it, there is not a lot of change in the object. So the advantage for you people is because you already have BW knowledge, it won't take a lot of time to understand, because pretty much it's a lot of similar concept. It's just that you have additional tables, you have views that have been added, and the interface is changed. So whatever you were doing before will be in a different position in this interface, right? So your creating of an info object is pretty much the same, but probably you have additionally two types, but those are not a regular use case scenario. But this info objects that you have probably will have more tables and views, and then the interface of, let's say, you want to create attributes, or you want to create a hierarchy, or you want to create a compounding, your interface is going to be a little different. So we're going to cover that as well. The other most important object within BW4 HANA is the advanced DSO. And advanced DSO basically is the object that is a superset for a lot of objects that we had in prior. Like like I said before, it'll be the one that will replace existing standard DSO, right? Optimized DSO, PSA, InfoQ, right? Pretty much all of these objects, the advanced DSO is going to basically replace. So there are different scenarios for it. There are different tables. This table naming is different. though it says advanced DSO, you might think it is similar to a regular DSO. It has three tables like usual. The inbound table, the active table, and the change log table. But the concept is like utilizing the DSO, but in some cases you don't use the inbound table. Sometimes you don't use the change log table. Sometimes you don't even use the active table. So there are different scenarios. They try to fit in pretty much all the scenarios of the DSO, the right optimized DSO, and the info cube into the same object. So we will see how that can be used. We also have the option to enable views for it so that you can directly read off the view itself. Right. Like I said, composite providers are supersets for multi-providers and infosets, where you can bring in different objects and define unions and joins and intersections, and you can also bring in HANA models and connect them as well. So all of that can be handled. So some change that you will find, but pretty much for these we have been working from 7.3, 7.4, and 7.5, but we will bring this in as well with transformations that can be pushed down. You have the analytic manager and the analysis process, or HAP we call it. So where we are moving away from APD into SAP. So we will go ahead and look at these options as well. What methods are given in terms of pushing procedures down to the BW for HANA system. All of you, I'm sure, know what is the layered scalable architecture, where we are trying to build the uh, layered model in BW4HANA. The basic of layered scalable architecture LSA is going to be the same, but we will have with BW4HANA LSA++ to streamline the core layers. So I'm going to talk about that as well. So very few objects that are there, but what version of each of these objects you should have. We're going to talk about that. Let's say an advanced DSO, which part of it should go into which layer. Um, so we're going to talk about that. We have workspaces as one more option. I don't see a lot of people utilizing that, but we'll try to give you a little overview about when we go for workspaces. Like I mentioned, there are hybrid modeling scenarios that we use in BW4HANA. The basic reason being, do we still have to rely on loading the data and then trying to look at the reports after that? Or is there a possibility then that we can utilize real-time objects directly in BW4HANA? This brings us to the question as to, can we consume HANA models or HANA tables directly in BW4HANA, which basically allow us to look at real-time scenarios, and that basically is why we call this as hybrid modeling. Probably build a view in HANA but utilize it in BW, or build a model in BW and utilize it in HANA. So things like that can be worked out in between BW and HANA. There's a very, very tight integration now between HANA and BW. The interface also allows that. And so we'd be looking at a lot of scenarios where objects can be used between each other, between BW4 HANA and HANA. One more addition that we have, but we probably must have started this from 7.5, is the data management piece. So there is the data management option added into each of the objects of the advanced DSO, where you have the ability to control temperatures and in dynamic tiering in terms of where you want to hold that data. Right? Is it warm data, or is it cold data, or is it hot data? Depending on where your secondary storage is or nearline storage is, all that options can be defined and can be utilized based on the importance of data, right? So HANA again runs the entire piece runs on the main memory, which is RAM, and so you can't store the entire data directly on the RAM because it'll consume a lot of space, and RAM is not something like your hard drive where you can add space to it. It is expensive to handle RAM, and so uh, we, as much as possible, try to put data that we utilize regularly on the RAM. But the other ones that we think that data is not utilized on a regular basis, we'd want to put that on a nearline storage or secondary storage, where we can consume it again from time to time. So this option of how we can segregate data into data that can be consumed at real time, which is hot tiering, and the other one as warm and cold can also be defined. It is given to the developer as well. So these options also are there in terms of data management. The other thing that we will be talking about is data provisioning, which basically talks about how we are going to bring data into BW4HANA. Is this the traditional approach of using ODP extractors, or is it do we have options to read data from external systems? And do we have the options for basically SLTing data into HANA and then consuming it into BW? So there are multiple options. So I basically divided them into a few. We're going to cover all of them to see which one suits. Again, each company utilizes a different method. Some of them have multiple options, and so we will be looking at all of them. Hey, Sangram, I will address that. Just give me a few. So his question, Sangram Singh has a question: how this gets decided based on OLAP and OLTP? Uh, I will answer that. But if you want to ask that question, you can unmute yourself and ask.
Yes, you hear me?
I can
Hello.
go ahead.
Yeah, you said mixed modeling. So I want to understand like functional knowledge behind that. One is like OLAP and OLTP. Is this decided to that by that, or is it decided by functional or client requirements? Like how the data will be into the memory, or it will be in a database.
All right. So basically, you go for mixed scenario when at the end the requirement is that you will want real-time data. Okay. So sometimes it is not possible to have a model directly in HANA, and you will want to build a BW model for it. And then you want to consume that in HANA because your reporting portfolio can be exposed to a lot of different reporting tools. That could be a requirement. Or in some scenarios, you have BW as your warehousing solution, but your modeling can be done on HANA itself, which basically gives you the ability to bring the data at real time into BW4 HANA. So in that scenario, I take a HANA model and consume that as a composite provider in BW, and I report on top of that. Right. So it depends completely on what is possible in native and what is possible in BW4 HANA. Usually, if I want to use real time, then I native HANA will suffice for it. But this is an option that is given for, let's say, you have a BW warehouse and you want to do warehousing only on BW, then you have a solution on HANA and you want to consume consume that in BW and use it because your warehousing solution is BW, then they would go for a mixed scenario. It doesn't mean that you always have to go for a mixed scenario. These are options that are available. And like I said, that is when you would want to go ahead and split between doing a certain solution in HANA and consuming that in BW, or doing that solution in BW and consuming that in HANA. Two things here is it is not necessary that you have to do mixed modeling. You can have individual solutions in each of these systems as well. But again, when it comes to real time, sometimes clients want real time, and so they want to have a HANA solution which is real time and consumed in BW, which basically makes that BW model real time. That's the only scenario that we use mixed modeling. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Just, yeah, Prabhu, go ahead.
Yeah, I just
Prabhu,
want
you
to
have a
ask,
question?
do you cover, yes, are you able
Go ahead.
to hear me?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
I want
Prabhu,
to
go
ask
ahead.
that do you cover, okay, do you cover stored procedures in part of native HANA and SQL-based modeling for complex scenarios?
Yeah, we do cover. So I will show you. So stored procedures or ODSUs and all that we are going to talk about. So stored procedures, you will basically need to know where we'll write stored procedure and how much SQL we are going to use to write a stored procedure. So I'll be showing that. So in case probably not everybody will be interested, but in case you want to know, I will show you how to write stored procedures. We'll write a basic one, depends on how complex you want to build that scenario.
Okay. So the options available for making it complex or any scenarios, can you give some while taking that so that we know how many options are available in that stored procedures?
The stored procedure is the same. Your process of writing the stored procedure is the same. When I say complex, it is not about the complexity of what you're going to build. Basically, the scenario could be complex, and so that is when you will use a lot of SQL statements and all of that. If you're well versed with SQL, basically writing that procedure is not a big deal. But I'll show you basically how to utilize. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, fine.
Srinivas Panyala. So yeah, you will be trained on BW4HANA 2.0. Do you provide material for certification? Yes, Techie Training will be providing the material for certification. So all the certification books that SAP recommends, they will be providing you all of those documents.
Do you give any information related to SAP cloud? SAP cloud.
On this, we are not, but I have worked on it, but I can't show that in here because uh, the landscape is not equipped for it. So, but I will check with them if there is any possibility. Okay.
Okay.
I don't want to just do theory stuff and all that. It makes sense to show it practically. So if our service basically is able to suffice that, then yeah, I'll show. One minute. Right, let's continue about this and then we'll get to questions. So I'll try to finish this quickly. So all of you know why or how SAP has moved away from regular BW to BW4 HANA. And so this is basically the roadmap, which makes, just to basically show you that these are the changes. Now you had multiple layers and multiple objects and multiple solutions in regular BW. And then they complex, or it got more complex when they added HANA piece also to it, when you had a certain BW objects already existing, and then we had solutions of HANA objects as well. So once basically all the objects for BW for HANA were enough to basically build a warehouse, that's when slowly the other objects, the older objects, were also stopped for utilizing. And so they had to have, not in one go making that change, but they had to have multiple versions of BW released for handling that. So it started with 7.0, 7.1, but once HANA came into picture, 7.3 was the first version that tried to address a few solutions, and then 7.4 and 7.5 they had quite some tight integration and then also better solutions. But at every point, SAP was targeting at a very streamlined and agile BW4 HANA system. And then they also, this was the plan, and so they couldn't bring it one way from directly from BW into an agile or Eclipse model. So they had to stagger it and move it with different versions of BW. So 2012, we had powered by HANA or BW on HANA system. This was completely for performance optimization. 7.4, we see basically simplified heavier models with agile models of BW for HANA, and also it was used for virtualization. 7.5, simplification and HANA platform integration with big data, obviously. Depends on people who use big data for sources. And then BW start add-on, one that we use for upgrade process. As somebody, you will have to mute your system. Some sound coming. So if you're finished asking questions, just mute your system. Right, so the BW4 HANA starter add-on is with 7.5. There is an add-on package that you install, which allows you to convert, let's say, an InfoCube to an advanced DSO, or Write Optimist to an advanced DSO, or a standard DSO to an advanced DSO. So once that is done, then you have the SAP BW4 HANA, which is equipped, and basically their dream is to go into different areas of Internet of IoTs and again, integration with big data and all of this, which they're aiming at building. So that's what we will see as in coming days with BW4 HANA. So this is a very concise BW4 HANA architecture. uh, ability to connect into HANA, and also a little change in the entire server process. Um, Guys, just give me one quick. Just to run through this slide. Basically, this is the BW4 HANA server. We have the metadata manager and the tech engine data warehousing that we bring in from here and workspaces. Now, this is just an improved version of what we had in BW4. So it accommodates both the HANA platform and also the BW server, but our interface for BW4HANA will be majorly on the Eclipse version. So, and then one major important thing is we will do away with BEX in BW4HANA. We do not have BEX anymore. We will be utilizing um, business objects reporting tool on top of BW4HANA. It's open to be used with a lot of other tools. So analysis for Office is something that we use because it's not based. But again, it depends on what individual clients prefer to use. So yeah, just to mention, these are some of the glaring differences between BW and BW4HANA. The simplified data structures and data flows and lifecycle management, and the openness of how we're going to use it with SQL access as well, and very tightly integrated system. In terms of interface, yeah, we've already seen, but I'll probably show you that tomorrow in tomorrow's session, where I'm going to run you through the interface that we will use in case we log into a regular GUI, what you can see and what you can't see, and in the Eclipse interface, what all is possible. So yeah, in terms of migration, just a quick one. So this is for customers who are on a BW version and they'd want to upgrade to BW4HANA. When I say upgrade, they want to also bring along the data that they have accumulated over years into the new system, which is BW4HANA. For such kind of a scenario, you have a BW4 HANA or BW 7.5 starter add-on pack that you install as a part of 7.5 before the upgrade. This allows you to basically move the objects from older objects into BW4 HANA related objects. It gives you the options. And then you can, after the upgrade, you will utilize it with BW4 HANA. This is one step. It is not as simple as we speak, but this is the process of how it is done. Next is, again, for SAP BW on any DB. So this is in case you are going through a completely new greenfield system, then you have a new implementation that you do with taking out all the obsolete old logic that you have and building it with the new. Just give me a second, guys. Okay. So there is also migration cockpit that is available on SAP, which allows you to do some migration. So we will look at those options as well. Guys, somebody's system is still on. I kind of have a little echo, so bear with me. Okay, so this time is open for questions. Any questions you have, please go ahead and ask. Any questions, guys? So tomorrow's session will be our first session where we will talk about differences of BW and BW4HANA system, and also it will be an introduction into the actual interface.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, go ahead. Hello.
Yeah, hi. I just joined. First of all, your voice is breaking. I don't know, is it internet issue or something else? Do you have a thing to dial in, to call in maybe? Hello?
Yes, you can dial in if you're on GoToMeeting app, you can directly link in, or if you want to dial in.
Okay, possible for you to send the demo. We just joined late. I thought it's 9 p.m. CST. It's actually EST, I think. So we missed it. So if you can share the demo recording, maybe I can go through that.
Everybody who has the access into, everybody who's registered today, you will have this demonstration session sent
Registering
as a part of
you
the.
have to register somewhere.
So when you logged in, you must have put in your email address or your phone number somewhere, right?
Yeah, I think we got it. And one more thing is, I reached out to your office, I think 1-800 number or something, and they never told me how much you're going to charge, the schedule and all those details.
You will have it. I didn't give them correct date, so I think that's why they did not. So you can speak to them now and they'll let you.
Okay. So they're going to tell me about the fee and everything?
Yes, please. You will probably have an email that will be sent, just like to everybody else. But if you have any questions or doubts, you can speak.
Okay. Is that the number, 91 number?
I'm going to put that on the screen. Just give me a second. Yeah. All your payment related information will be sent to your email. And if you have any questions, you can speak to the office. I am the one who's in charge of training. So any questions on training, I'll handle. Okay, one more number I'm going to add in here. Just give me a second. So, yeah. So you can call this or so, yeah. I think this one has WhatsApp as well. So in case you want to chat with them or call them on WhatsApp, please. Anything else, guys? Any other questions? So just for your information, you will have an email anyway sent to you. But just to give you a heads up, we will have the session same time tomorrow, and that will be our first session. Okay, so I hope to see all of you in that session as well. Anyways, for some of you who have joined in late, I'm going to tell that as a reference to the Indian time. I'm sure all of you have the Indian time for reference. That will be at 6:30 Indian time, and for all of you, it's going to be, I think, 9 p.m. EST. Okay. All right, guys. So I believe all of you know the prerequisites for this curriculum. So, if you already have that prerequisite, then you are eligible for doing this curriculum. All right. Anyways, I think I'll hold it off at this point. We will have the session tomorrow, same time. You will have an invite being sent as well. So, and also a reminder. This is not for beginners in BW. All right. All right, guys. Thanks again. It's been a great time. Thanks for making time to attend this session. I hope to see you all tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye now.